Ain't nobody ever said Mississippi had a volcano. Matter of fact, if you asked, folks would laugh in your face. Ain't no mountains round here, they'd say. What, you think we sittin' on Yellowstone? But if that's true, somebody explain why the ground's been shaking like it got the Holy Ghost. It started small, little tremors that made wind chimes sing when there wasn't no wind. Then the cracks came, splitting through back roads, cutting through cotton fields, reaching right up under folks' homes. Hot air seeped through them, thick with a smell that made dogs whimper and old folks pray under their breath. It wasn't the heat you'd expect from Mississippi summer. It was something different, like the earth itself was breathing. Earl Jenkins, an old man with a shotgun he barely knew how to use, had lived out by the old lake for 50 years. He'd seen storms, floods, and more than a few oddities in his time. But what was happening now, with the earth shifting and rumbling beneath him, was something he couldn't explain. Earl wasn't one for ghost stories, but when his dog disappeared without a trace, and the lake behind his property started to boil, he couldn't keep pretending it was just the weather. "Ain't never seen nothing like this," he muttered, shaking his head as he stood there with his shotgun raised, watching the steam rise from the water. And then there was Miss Patty. Now, if you from round here, you know Miss Patty don't miss a day at her diner. Patty's home cookin' had been serving biscuits and catfish since before most folks was born. She opened up at 5 a.m. sharp, rain or shine, and you'd always find her at the stove, humming tunes and slinging plates of fried chicken. But one morning, the diner's doors were locked. The lights were off. No sign of Patty. Folks peeked through the window and saw her apron sitting neatly on the counter, still tied like she'd just stepped out of it. Trey Lawson, the local journalist, caught wind of it right away. He'd always been the first to write up the odd stuff in town, but something about this felt different. He figured it was just another small town mystery, something to fill the papers. But when he started asking questions, no one seemed to know anything. Everyone had a different story. Some said she'd gone out to visit family. Others swore they'd seen her walk out the back door with someone. A stranger, they said, tall and shadowy. But none of the stories added up. As Trey walked down Main Street that afternoon, he felt something weird. The ground under his feet seemed uneven, like the street wasn't where it should be. He thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But the more he walked, the more he noticed. The cracks in the sidewalk were spreading, curling like vines up the side of the buildings. The streetlights flickered even in the middle of the day, casting an eerie glow over everything. He shivered. The high-pitched hum from under the street growing louder. "Something ain't right," Trey muttered to himself. But no one seemed to be paying attention. Folks just kept walking, carrying on with their business like it was another normal day in Mississippi. They hadn't seen what he had. The way the land was shifting. How it felt like something was trying to crawl out from beneath the earth. Cleo, Big Mama Hayes, the oldest living resident of the town, had seen it all. She didn't have to ask questions. She knew exactly what was going on. She'd heard the whispers of the past, the stories her grandmother had told her about the devil's kettle. Folks said it was a sinkhole, but that wasn't all of it. It was something else. Something that had been sealed away, buried beneath the town long ago. She'd heard rumors, whispers of something that shouldn't have been disturbed, something powerful. Big Mama wasn't scared. She'd seen it before, and she knew what to do. But the younger folk, they were clueless, acting like everything was fine. They didn't know what waited beneath the surface. The ones who'd buried the truth had sealed it in the earth, and now it was waking up. And when it woke up, it got hungry. The land was cracking. The ground was boiling. And the whispers were getting louder, especially when it rained. Trey had heard them too. The soft, almost indistinct voices coming from the cracks. They weren't just sounds. They were calls, pulling people towards them. He didn't know who or what was whispering, but it was making his skin crawl. Big Mama wasn't worried about the cracks or the whispers. She'd been preparing for years, stockpiling food, water, anything she could get her hands on. She knew what was coming. "Don't be asking too many questions, child," she told Trey, her eyes narrowed. "Some things are best left alone. The land's been waiting, and now it's time to pay the price." As the days passed, the cracks spread, winding through the town like veins, twisting and turning, swallowing more and more of the earth. The smells grew worse. Sulfur, rotting earth, decay. People started getting sick, coughing up blood, feeling weak, and even losing their minds. Something was feeding off the land, something that was slowly but surely taking over. And then, one night, Just as the sun dipped behind the trees, the biggest crack of them all opened. It was right in the center of the town square. Trey was there, notebook in hand, when it happened. The ground split wide open, the sound like a gunshot, and from the depths of the earth, something rose. It wasn't fire or lava like you'd expect from a volcano. It was something worse. Something ancient, something hungry. The air was thick with heat. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the people who'd gathered around began to scream. The thing that crawled from the earth was more than just a creature. It was the land itself. The cursed remains of something long forgotten. And it was ready to feast. "Run," Big Mama whispered, a look of resignation in her eyes. "It's time." The earth rumbled louder, and the thing from the depths reached out, its twisted limbs dragging itself toward the crowd. It had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the right time to come back. Now, there was no stopping it. Whatever was in the kettle, it was hungry, and it wasn't going to stop until the town and everything in it was gone.